Hi, guys. This is Kim and David Lott with Crop Disaster Recovery, and we're here shooting today from our home office, which we feel warm and fuzziest at. So we're happy to be with you guys. We're going to be discussing USDA's One Farm, One File and how this overarching structure is going to affect producers, and then who got the award for that, and kind of transition into some of these other programs and the changes that we're seeing in those. So, David, why don't you kick us off with who got the government contract to spend all this money?
Well, there's been a lot of conversation recently about Peter Thiel and all of his various endeavors and the other AI companies involved in defense and various aspects of the federal government. Where we focus the most, USDA, of course, is Palantir, who's been brought in to help push the One Farm, One Record initiative?
One Farmer, One File initiative.
There we go.
And so, well, let's digest this a little bit more, because I think the company that's getting this award, they've developed CIA software, they're developing AI software for Department of Defense, so the entire U.S. military, Homeland Security, like there are lots and lots of various other agencies that they're already working on those projects.
Well, and at the end of the day, it's just across the board consolidation of each producer's information, whether that be personally through some entity or set of nested entities. And with what we do, we've seen the confusion that the various complexities of ownership entity structures and how often they change can create. So there's a legitimate concern there that we could see some actual increased efficiency from an initiative like that. But what it's simultaneously going to do is raise the burden on participants in all manner of USDA programs and offerings to really have to have incredibly accurate records. And that's going to be crop insurance, disaster aid program applications, and just the general info on record with FSA and general USDA and its sub-agencies at large. And that's something we're already seeing as an increase in communication between FSA, RMA, even IRS, which haven't quite worked the kinks out of that one yet, but it's coming. And so we're coming into an era where discrepancies in your records between those different government entities is going to be somewhere between problematic and fatal to eligibility and ability to participate in these programs and various initiatives. Well,
and with the One Farmer, One File, so for anyone who doesn't know, farmers.gov, if you're a U.S. producer, you can log in, create an account, and when you get onto farmers.gov, which is great, like I'm excited that USDA is finally stepping up their game, because this is a huge technology advancement for the agency, who for many, many years has done everything with paper hard files. And so on farmers.gov, you can create an account, you can log in, and then there's still a lot of kinks that have to get worked out there. But the goal is that you'll have all your records in one place. So your crop insurance records, your FSA program records, your financial inquiries, so all of the places you've gotten paid from, and then NRCS and the FSA loans should also eventually find their home all under that One Farmer, One File.
And crop insurance is a really good example, because we've already seen that start to play out. There's interaction we've never seen before between rainfall insurance and the information the producers have filed with agency for disaster aid programs. In particular, Honeybee rainfall insurance and Honeybee ELAP participation. They used to live in two different universes. Now we're seeing an insane number of audits on the insurance side, and RMA is attempting to tie the insurance filings back to the ELAP filings, and it's clunky. I don't think the approach they're coming at it with is really going to stick long term because it's a bit ham-fisted. They haven't really figured out the intricacies of how those two should be connected, but I think they'll get there. And that's before any of this new tech goes into operation. Once Palantir really comes up with something that's effective enough to go into use and have a significant impact, there's going to be very low margin for errors in consistency amongst your filing with all these various agencies.
Well, even right now with the Supplemental Disaster Relief Program, which if you guys don't know, that program is applicable for nurseries, for specialty crops, for the row crop guys. I mean, it covers most commodities. Mm-hmm. And the linkage requirements that we're seeing between how you guys buy your crop insurance and those base units and how that crop insurance policy is broken down acreage-wise on the farms, all of that is playing into how the Supplemental Disaster Relief Program is rolled out. And there's two stages on that. Stage one was based off crop insurance indemnity payments. And then stage two is if you have shallow losses or you didn't have crop insurance. It addresses quite a few factors. But from what we're finding, it's really all based around those base units on your crop insurance policies, and how those base units were structured directly ties into the FSA program for SDRP stages 1 and 2, really.
Yes, and it's another place where we see crop insurance data starting to dovetail more and more with the disaster aid programs. And right now it's a nightmare. They're having to do, FSA is having to work with RMA, who backs the crop insurance and is the repository of crop insurance data, to initiate data pulls from RMA to auto-populate FSA to applications. And we've had to pause submissions because we'll complete an application with pre-generated application with FSA's version of RMA data auto-populated into it. By the time we get ready to submit or do submit, they've done an additional data pull, and everything on the auto-generated application changes. And we can look at it and tell this isn't accurate. It's going to change yet again. And it's just a game of sitting back and waiting to see how many data pulls they actually do, what the final form of the data looks like. Is it anywhere close to accurate? But it is an example of where things are going. The universal usage of a single data set between all these different government entities it's coming, it's already started, and it's going to intensify.
It is. And so with that, this is more of it's time to get your house in order, you guys. Like, we're waving the white flag for everybody that's out there at home that you guys need to get your records straight. And when I say records straight, if all your information is housed online in one farm, one file, and you change entities, you change beneficiaries on your trust, you add kids to your trust, you set up new trusts that have EIN numbers, all of these items need to be updated with Farm Service Agency. Mm-hmm. We've seen case studies where, the husband and wife, they split up after a long, long time in marriage, and now wife needs to come off of the ownership because there's been transfers of stock. And if those changes aren't done properly in time, then it's going to affect your payments and possibly make it to where folks have to pay money back because the right beneficiaries of the programs did not get paid in the first place.
Especially if the new entity structures, ownership structures aren't correctly addressed on the front end. You only have a certain amount of time, certain deadlines to get that stuff accurately filed with agency. If we have to do it retroactively after the fact, it can usually be fixed, but it becomes much more of an uphill fight. And that's passing ownership down to kids. That's changes in ownership structure. A lot of estate planning involves.
What about the deaths that we've seen recently?
We've got multiple appeals going on right now due to ownership changes due to deaths, and it gets complex quickly.
It does, and especially when the death was unexpected. I think when the death is unexpected, it really hits folks hard up front on the front end because you did not expect this event to happen in the first place.
But all those various issues have a common solution, which is timely addressing changes in any type of ownership or entity structure and making sure everything's filed accurately as soon as possible.
And I think due to the timing of you buy crop insurance at a different time of year, you sign up for FSA programs as they are released or when disaster hits. And so a lot of folks forget. You just forget. And then what you end up with is one of the agencies gets updated. So what we've seen happen quite a bit is that maybe the event with your entity changed pretty close to the time that you were supposed to sign up for crop insurance by mid-December. And so you have your crop insurance signed up under the correct company name and EIN number, but then it's been 4 or 5 months and you forget to update Farm Service Agency and NRCS. And this is where hopefully if the website works correctly, all of these records housed in the same place can bring some uniformity to these agencies, and that producers will have an easier time updating their records. Now, I would like to talk about what we kind of see as a greater efficiency with this one farmer, one file, but it could also be very worrisome when we look at ag in the grand scheme of things. And that is, if your application is filled out accurately and you have the supporting documents to back the application, payment should probably be issued a lot quicker than what has been occurring, with Farm Service Agency over the years.
It's early days and there's different timelines for each of these levels of implementation. Like we are already seeing increased, not just interaction, but shared data between separate government agencies. That's happening yesterday. The One Farmer, One File initiative and the implementation of AI, that's further down the road. We don't really have a roadmap for that. My gut tells me at least a couple years, maybe longer.
They're hoping to roll it out by 2028.
And they're never late on anything. But at the end of the day, these things are coming. There's a policy push in that direction, even if the details over time end up playing out a bit differently.
Yeah, I'm curious to see where this takes us. I think long term, we'll see producers hopefully getting paid a lot faster, since these are disaster aid funds, and realistically, they should be paid out within 6 months or so.
And that's the hopeful version. Is I think anywhere you slice it, there's going to be higher barriers to entry, taller hurdles to clear to get eligibility established initially. But once you're in the system and you have everything accurately filed, as long as you stay up to date on that, I think there's a good chance that application consideration, approvals, payment on approvals actually flow faster for the folks who can clear those initial hurdles.
Yes. And then the folks that can't, because that will be an entire thing when AI is doing the initial evaluations of these applications. And we all know that whenever a computer system starts going through applications, if the right boxes are not checked, you miss some information, it's going to be very quick to kick that application back out. And so I don't think that the need for representation is going to become any less. I just think it's going to be in a little bit of a different capacity.
Yeah, well, my expectations that to accurately get everything on file as it needs to be to establish initial eligibility and then to keep things up to date to maintain that eligibility, the level of technical knowledge and familiarity with the rules and the changing rules, because constantly a moving target. The required skill levels are only going to rise. Now, again, hopefully, once you're in, maintaining eligibility and participating actually becomes a little bit smoother.
We hope. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Maybe they'll get some of the kinks worked out with the agencies talking between themselves too, because as you were explaining earlier, there's a lot of conflicting information between even the risk management agency and Farm Service Agency on these SDRP applications.
And those are sister agencies that have historically worked very close together, and they still don't communicate well. And, you start bringing in some of these issues where FSA has to get clearance from IRS on some of the financial aspects of things, and it gets ridiculous quickly. And so those things need to be addressed. That needs to improve.
It would be
the devil's in the details.
The devil's in the details, and we'll see as this continues to roll out. This isn't the first time that USDA has spent a very large amount of money to update their computer software systems. And as we've seen in the past, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, and it ends up costing the taxpayers at the end of the day. So I really, really hope that they can get an effective system and that Peter Thiel comes through on this one, but we'll see. We'll see.
We're living in interesting times. If it's not that company, it'll be replaced with something else later, likely still working towards the same goals. And so cautiously optimistic. But
for right now, as a producer, you guys need to be most concerned with making sure that your records are up to date, that your records are accurate, that you've got accurate information on file with RMA, FSA, NRCS, because these programs are moving more and more into what we call actively engaged determination status. And so with that, there's two programs out right now. There's FBA, which is the Farmers Bridge Assistance Program that primarily was $12 billion in funding. $11 billion went to a lot of the row crop commodities. $1 billion went to specialty crops. And then we've got under that umbrella, we've got the Assistance for Specialty Crop Farmers Program, or ASCF. And on both of those programs, USDA is requiring something that we haven't seen for quite some time on a new program, which they require an actively engaged determination status. And there's going to be many producers that get left behind in the cracks on this one. Actively engaged means that you have to take your paperwork, your eligibility paperwork with the Farm Service Agency to a new level. And as a producer, you have to disclose to FSA how you are doing business, who you're doing business with, all your different farm locations, your equipment you own, how you raise capital to pay for everything, loan, who you borrow money from. All of those types of items get updated to our federal government in that. And so one of the items to me that just kind of makes me tilt my head a little bit is that as we're moving to more AI-infused software, one farmer, one file, get everything under one roof, we don't want to see producers caught off guard with how these standards are being elevated and what data is being stored with our federal government. And it's something that, again, no one's talking about this. So,
and that's going to happen. We've been informing everyone that we can. We've been putting in our newsletters and sharing with clients and speaking about it at events. But in general, I just don't think most producers understand the changes that are coming, the magnitude of those changes, and how quickly they are rolling out. And at the end of the day, it's nothing new insofar as the accuracy of your data is paramount. It always has been. Every time we've got to take something to appeal, at the end of the day, if we've got accurate data to rely upon, slam dunk, easy job. If we don't, it's an entirely different story. So that's nothing new. What is changing is the level of scrutiny placed upon that data and the standards to which producers are going to be held for that accuracy.
Yes. So one of the areas, I know we keep saying have accurate records, but what that really looks like and what we find is that maybe you changed your company name, or let's say that granddad who was doing business, maybe he was doing business under a DBA, and it's time, maybe 5 years ago, he rolled that into his own LLC or S Corp or whatever entity structure is most favorable to their state, to roll out and start gifting that business to the kids or the grandkids. A lot of folks forget you've got to update your co-ops. Like if you sell through a co-op, you need to update your co-op information so that it reflects the new name changes and the new EIN and what entity is retrieving that money. Another one.
Just a year or two ago, there was far more flexibility with those types of discrepancies. Now we're seeing agency challenge things that are obviously the same entity doing business, and something as small as a slight discrepancy in the names on invoices, that type of thing, are being called into question.
They are, or names on bank accounts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you were doing business under your personal social security number and your name, and now you've got a company that you've rolled these assets into, you need to change the name on the bank account, because with actively engaged determination status, and now you have to update all of that information with the Farm Service Agency. As we move towards one farmer, one file, an agency is going to be looking at this data. If the names don't match, the EIN numbers don't match, producers will have receivable letters, and it's not going to be as easy to navigate.
Mm-hmm. And the cleanest way to think about it in my mind is EINs, taxpayer IDs, be it your social, whatever. That's the true entity doing business that everything needs to tie back to.
Thank you for sitting with us today, guys. We hope you learned some new information, and get your house in order, because it's coming. Call us if you need representation or you need help with any of these items. Crop Disaster Recovery, signing off.
Absolutely. We're here for you. Thanks.